So, Charley, thank you for a start to finding time to chat with us about this, because it's been a very exciting thing to hear about, because I've watched you riding all around the world and going, oh my God, that's terrifying. And I mean, what is, I think, always been good about what you've done is you start out all kind of capable and roughy-tufty, and basically shit goes wrong. I mean, for real, you know, people fall off bikes break stuff, and then you have to, that's been what's made those adventures you've been on really interesting.
When we did Long Way Round, you know, that came from you and I wanting to do a longer journey.
Right.
And then you know, we thought we'd go down to the south of Spain and meet our family there, and then you know, have a nice holiday and then ride back.
Yeah.
You know, and then one day Ewan said, "Oh, I've got this idea," and so I went to his house and he had this map of the world, and he said, "Look, what if we go to, you know, I know we were talking about maybe China, but what if we just carry on and go to New York?"
Yeah.
And so that seemed like a good idea. Yeah. Little did we know what
you're actually
what we're actually doing for. And so when we did that, and then we did Long Way Down through Africa.
Yeah.
And then we've just done Long Way Up. And you know, it's been a long time since we.
Yes, there's been a long gap.
Yeah, long gap. There's been like I think it was 12 years or something between them, and and I think Ewan had moved to the States. I was over here. He was working there. I was working a lot, so he would come over here and work, but I was always traveling.
Right.
So we kind of just drifted along.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, I had a huge motorcycle crash and smashed my legs to pieces, and that sort of brought us back together again. I remember my wife telling him that the accident had happened, and then he rang my phone to talk to me, and there's some guy answered and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, he's in the operating theatre and he'll be there for hours," and you know, and I'm still suffering a lot from that. But that kind of brought us back together.
Right.
And then I was stuck in the house because I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And Ewan came. He came to stay for a few nights and ended up staying with me for a month. And we started talking about doing a Long Way Up.
Right.
And then Russ and Dave, who are business partners and the two producers who were in the Rivians as backup vehicles for this trip, because they're electric as well. They came over, and then Russ, because he likes doing things for the first time and he likes all sorts of stuff like that, and he goes, "Look, no one's done it before, but why don't we? Have we thought about electric?" And we go, "Yeah, that's a great idea."
Yeah.
And then it's cut to us and the bottom of Argentina in the middle of
where there's not a lot of plug sockets.
There was no plug sockets in South America, Central America, or Mexico.
Wow.
There's no fast charging. So we found ourselves down there in the middle of winter, and one of the worst winters since 1974 or something like that.
So you really
and
picked it.
we had to cancel it. We had to postpone it for like 4 days because of blizzards and snowstorms. And then Ewan and I, then we came back all this, the cables, these cables, how do you plug them in? They were so new, these weren't for sale yet. The Rivians hadn't really been
barely
made.
been announced.
We had one and two,
Right.
the first one,
Wow.
the 1 and 2 that kind of ones that were properly made. And then, and so that was a steep learning curve for electric because you know that electric, it doesn't like the cold so much.
Yeah.
You know, batteries don't perform as much. And so we go, we're going to do this, we're going to do these miles. And we get out on that first day and we've done like 2/3 less.
Right,
We've done 1/3 less than we thought. And then we thought, and so it was a massive learning curve about all the electric. And not only that, but we'd have to go to the end of each day and ask someone to plug in.
Yeah.
And, would you mind? And we were thinking we'd have to explain to them how much it was going to cost and, all this kind of stuff. But really, every single person we asked,
was
said,
okay with it.
Go for it.
Yeah. So it's quite useful me being supremely ignorant about combustion motorbikes. So if you've got a tank full of petrol in a bike that's roughly this sort of scale and power, I don't know how far you can go on that. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you have an adventure bike, you can put enough fuel in it to do 500 kilometers.
Right.
Or 300 miles.
300, right.
And so that gives you whatever scope. Whereas this is with a charge in the middle of the day, you're going to get 150 miles or so out of it. So you had to change.
Oh, what if you ride it, charge it, ride it? That's 150 miles, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we would do, we would go along. It was good. It was hilarious sometimes because you go along to find some restaurant. So you're not hanging out in petrol stations anymore.
No.
You're hanging out at cafes and restaurants and businesses.
Yeah.
Like we would
so
see.
Got lights on.
See
You've
a
got
garage.
Yeah.
We see a garage and say, "Can we plug in?" Because their power would probably be stronger. And then what you do is we'd go to, there's a nice restaurant, we'll sit there and have a nice meal. And we'd plug in and we'd plunge the whole restaurant into darkness, And people were kind of cool. They go, okay, hang on, all right, let's put one here and we'll put one on another ring and see how that works, and then plunge into darkness again. And so it was quite tough. And someone said once that what you've got to do about electric is a bit like an electric battery or car or bike battery is a bit like a glass of red wine. So red wine, is nice at room temperature. Yeah. It performs very well. If you have a big glass, you can pour the wine in super fast. Yeah. Into the thing, but if you want to top it up, just that last bit you have to just dribble it in, and a battery is kind of a bit the same.
I
really.
love that we'll use the red wine. I think we need a graphic where you see
red wine, you just see the red wine coming up, and so it performs like that, and so whilst and then not only were we sort of plugging into these different people, but we're kind of plugging the bikes in, but we're plugging into their lives as well. So suddenly, we would be in someone's business.
Well, you're going to be there for much longer. If you're filling up with gas, it's a few minutes, isn't it?
And then you would, listen, come for some lunch, or we'd be invited to their house, and then suddenly you're sitting there having this amazing conversation with people, and they go, oh, look, if you're heading this way, you've got to go and see these people, or you've got to go and stay there, or you've got to. So there was this whole sort of perpetual thing that went on that was very cool.
And then so the Rivians, could you take a charge from them if you were really desperate, because they've got obviously much bigger batteries?
Well, we developed along with Rivian and Harley Davidson, and we've got this Harley here. They brought this along very kindly for this interview. Just so
we've got one there.
We can see it. So
and it was this model you used. I mean, obviously it had panniers and all kind of other stuff.
Yeah. So what they did was we said, look, we'd love to use this, but you need to beef it up for us. So they put a bigger front end on. They changed the back, put panniers on the back. So they changed it a lot, and then they tested it out in the desert to make sure that it was safe and all that kind of stuff, because they were like all four vehicles were all prototypes.
Yeah.
And so they did it, and then we, answering to your question about the Rivians, we developed this thing so Rivian to bike. So we had a box that could do it and fill the bikes in about an hour, just over an hour.
So I've been thinking, I'm already, haven't even seen the show yet, and I'm anxious for you. I can imagine you riding on desert roads. You go, where do we charge? But then I have suddenly thought, I'm only thinking of the bikes, because you've got to charge the Rivians as well. And you plug 2 Rivians into a little cafe, you're going to wipe out the grid.
Well, so we did. So along with Rivian, they teamed up with another company. And we've left this whole phase 2 charging system every 100 miles, from the bottom of Argentina to Central America,
installed it
into Mexico. Yeah.
Wow.
So anybody now
could do that.
Can do that. So the Rivians had that, but then this is CCS. So this is phase 3.
Right.
So we could, although we could charge from them, but it was just like charging from a normal battery, a normal plug.
Yeah.
So we didn't benefit from it, but later on we benefited from the Rivian to bike system. So we spent most of our time charging.
Yes.
And but I think after you've kind of gotten over that range anxiety syndrome, and it was a bit like when petrol for cars first came up. So if we had a petrol car sitting here and we wanted to go into Chelsea from here, you'd fill up your car and you think, okay, we can get to Chelsea. There's an electric scooter, and you would take the car into Chelsea, but you think, well, I can get there, but will there be petrol there? Will I be able to get back?
Yeah.
And people were adamant that the petrol car wasn't going to work, and then slowly, petrol stations appeared. And because originally you would have to buy your petrol from a chemist.
From a chemist, yeah. It's a cleaning fluid.
And so, and I think that's sort of what's happening now.
Yeah.
Is
it's gradually changing. More and more people are realising you can do it. I mean, yes.
But these things are great fun. I mean, they are.
Because that's the other thing I wanted to, because you've got so much experience riding bikes, like combustion bikes. So that, I don't know how it feels different to ride an electric one. I mean, I know about cars, but I don't know about bikes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you sort of get almost similar experiences. So you know, with the motorbike, there's no engine, there's no real big vibration. Yeah. So in some way, you feel much closer to more connected to the road.
Right.
So that's a very nice feeling. So coming back from school.
Yeah.
I think, you know, because you haven't got an engine, you haven't got the vibration. Yeah. You feel more connection to the road, or a different connection to the road. And one of the things we noticed as well is when we were going along, we would pull over and there'd be a whole herd of llamas just on the side of the road. And because there was no noise, you would turn up, they wouldn't go anywhere. Right. And they would just sort of look at you with those very voluptuous eyes that they have.
With the big eyelashes.
Your big eyelashes, and they're just looking at you, blinking away, not quite sure what was going on. But and then, so it's different. You ride through towns and villages, and you can hear everybody.
Yes.
And you can hear people talking on the street. You can, you know. And the other funny thing is, you pull over and you say, "Can we have some fuel, some electricity?" And you know, they would say, "Yo," and that's, you know, "What are you doing?" We explained to them, and they were like, "Why would you want to do that?" Yeah. And a lot of time we were thinking, well, I don't know why.
We've forgotten why.
I don't know. It was his idea, and it's a bloody stupid one, you know. And then they would say, you know, well, what are they? And it's always with their electric bikes, and then they'd say, well, who makes them? You say Harley Davidson. And then they just go, what?
Yeah.
Harley Davidsons? But they make big V twin thumpers. And what was really what was one of the loveliest things that we did, because we had some real tough times going through. We went from Chile into Bolivia, and we crossed the border. It was super high, about 13,000 feet.
Wow.
And straight into this desert. I mean, just the most stunning
and
desert.
And high up desert then?
Yeah, really high up desert. And these very famous red lakes and stuff, but dirt, deep gravel, deep sand.
Right.
I mean, corrugated road. mean, you and I have travelled around the world a bit on bikes, and this corrugation was brutal. Oh, you know, we sitting there going like this, and we just think, oh my God. And then you're thinking, my God, we're on electric motorbikes.
Yeah.
Going through all this deep sand, you know, and it was performing, it was doing its job incredibly well. Right. And then you would think, oh my God, we're going to run out of fuel. Oh, we're going to run out of electricity. And then just in the distance, you would see this one little tiny building,
right,
where you were aiming for this place to stay the night and have electricity and plug in. So it was amazing what these puppies did.
Yeah,
amazing.
There was a shot that I think is in the trailer, which is the two of you sitting with a load of kids.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone asks you, or something about, you know, someone says he's a movie star. They say, oh, what have you been in? And he's very modest about it. He goes, well, Star Wars. And there's like 10 kids, none of them have heard of it.
No,
I love that.
nothing.
It was a classic moment.
No, it was hilarious. I mean, it was funny because, you know, in a lot of the world, you know, 60% of the world, people struggle.
Yeah,
60% of the world, and you know, and most people are just bumbling along,
scraping along
in their day. And like in that particular thing, we did a UNICEF project where we went to go and see the school where they in Peru where half of the lessons are in Spanish and the other half are in their native language, so that their culture hasn't been eroded away, and it's in danger of disappearing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And so we went there, and it was amazing because this school was set up in a small village, and it very quickly became a big town because all these families and people all moved to this town so their children
could go to school. Wow, isn't that amazing?
And that's like for all of us, the importance of our children getting an education and stuff like that. And that's something that UNICEF does brilliantly, is help that. And then something like 60% of the world's children are inoculated by UNICEF.
Right. Wow.
So they do these huge things. Anyway, we're sitting there and they're trying to explain, you know, and they were sitting there going, you'd think that
why have these two men come through our town on electric motorbikes?
Star Wars, you know. And then so we were all kind of giggling at that, and then we moved on to a bit of the school, and we both sat down on these little tiny chairs, and my chair collapsed and fell. Completely disintegrated underneath me, and then they thought that
would be hysterical.
Just hysterical. So you know, it's funny how kids are just kids. Wherever you are around the world.
No matter where. Yeah.
Anyway, but there you go. But
that is fantastic. So then, when you got to So even in Mexico, there wasn't a kind of charging infrastructure of any.
No, there wasn't. I mean, there probably was in Mexico City, but we didn't go through there.
Because you were on Pan American Highway, effectively. Where you
more or less. More or less. And then we. But actually, that was one of the things I remembered now. We one of the most really interesting places we went to was Costa Rica.
Right.
And a beautiful place.
Costa Rica is stunning.
Stunningly beautiful place. But do you know that the first light bulb ever turned on in Costa Rica was charged by renewable energy?
Right.
And 90% of their power is renewable energy.
Renewable. And do you cover that in the show?
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really good.
And they don't have a military.
No.
So the money that they would spend on the military, they spend on renewable energy, education, and stuff
the
like that.
really interesting thing about them is, because my geography of that area is limited, but I've interviewed an amazing woman from Costa Rica, is that they've not got oil. And their neighbour, and I can't remember which it is, does have oil, and it's completely corrupted the government, and it's made them politically unstable, and there's poverty and starvation, and there's incredible wealth, and there's massive corruption. They haven't got any oil. And they're kind of all right.
Yeah, no, and they do.
It's really interesting.
And one of the places we went past one of these big solar panel, these solar farms.
Right.
And we thought, look, we'll just pop in and say hello. And so we popped in, said hello, and we said, would you take us around? Because I don't know how a solar farm works. I mean, you see them going down the M4, or you see them on the sides of roads, and some of them are massive.
Yeah.
And so they said, yeah, come in, and especially since they saw the electric. Yeah. And then they said, come on, we'll plug you in.
Yeah.
And so we were asking, can we plug in while we have the tour? So so at that stage we were plugged straight into the sun and straight into the bike. So it was a fantastic feeling. Yeah. And they explained to us, and they had this big fence around the solar farm with barbed wire and stuff like that. And we said, it's just a solar farm. And they go, well, at the very beginning, people were really worried about it. They said that the sun was going to reflect off the solar panels and blind people's eyes. Right. And people tried to throw stones over to sort of break the solar panels because people didn't know what understand it. It's a bit like here. I meet people, and you can be standing by this motorbike that Harley lent for today, or gave us for today, and they look at it and they go, oh, that's a beautiful bike. And then you say it's electric, and you go, oh no, electric, I hate electric, I hate it, absolutely hate it, would never ride it. And you go, oh, okay. Have you ever had it go? No, never want to go, And it's amazing and I think it's that idea of the petrol, the horse and petrol and all that kind of stuff that I think people are if you don't understand it, you're afraid of it.
Yes, yeah.
And some people just are not willing to, and people are going to take a while to
adjust to it,
to give it a go.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, to be an age group of being a little bit older.
Yeah, who are resistant to it.
That are resistant to it, because my children who are 23 and 24 now, they
it's not a problem.
They don't really care.
No.
They'll jump. We've got a couple of little stand-up scooters, and they're whiz on those. Yeah. If they jumped into a Tesla Uber car,
so what?
They wouldn't care.
It's just a car, isn't it?
And if I handed them an electric car and say, look, this is your car, they'd be happy.
Yeah, I think they would.
Okay.
I would be.
So if there's any car makers out there who would
like
to give me
like
one,
to
then
give my children some cars. No, that is fantastic. So you made it. You got to, because we don't want to post any spoilers.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, you're here, so presumably you made it.
Yeah, no, we did. No, and one of the things we did that was amazing.
Because you just went to LA, is that right?
Yeah, just to LA. So we just
to LA from Tierra del Fuego. It's quite a long way.
13,000 miles and however many countries. And, just plugging in the whole way. But what was amazing was when we, on our first day in America, we kind of left late, and we had quite a way to go, and we're thinking, we've only got this amount of battery power. We're not going to be able to get very far. Yeah. And we'd organised to stop at one of these fast chargers, and they were kind of new to us. We'd never.
So that was the first time we'd
ever used
proper rapid charger.
Proper. Because when we got down to the bottom of Argentina to start this, Ewan and I looked at the bikes, got them out of the crate, and we realised we'd only ever ridden these bikes for about an hour and a half.
Right.
and had never charged them, had never done anything like
Really?
that.
Seriously?
Nothing, nothing. And so, because they're all prototypes, it just wasn't time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get to this charge and we put it in, and you can literally see the power going in. Yeah. And I was laughing with you because I said, do you know what this feels like? It must feel like someone who's just walked up to escalators for the first time.
Yes.
And thought, oh my,
the
look
stairs
at them
are moving.
And that was the
quicker.
feeling we had.
Right.
And we had this sort of this electric dance. We were so elated. And then that day, even though we left late that day, we still did 230 miles that day. And for us, that was from 150 miles a day to suddenly 250 miles a day. That was, and that's super doable in the States.
Oh
easily.
yeah, absolutely. And here.
And here. I mean, there's an app. You can get the Zap. I think it's Plug Share or whatever it's called.
Plug Share or ZapMap.
Or ZapMap.
It tells you where
and
the
you just
charges
put
are.
in the charges that works for you.
Yeah.
And then it just shows you where they are.
Yeah.
And so, when people say, "Oh no, but you can't get them charging anywhere," and it takes hours, and you go, "Well, actually, here's the app, and actually, here's the thing."
Quite quick,
It's
because
quite quick.
I had to look at it. It's 15.5 kilowatt hour battery. So in terms of electric cars, now it's tiny.
It's
It's
tiny,
very small.
but it'll
obviously
do 50 kilowatts. So it's CCS.
So it's going to fill up pretty quick.
So so I think you can do 80% in about 35-40 minutes or so, depending on the charger, and then and off you go, or you just plug it in at home overnight.
Yeah. And you've got
urban, it'll do around 120 miles.
Right.
It'll do urban. So if you're commuting and stuff like that, there's more than enough to do.
And then in terms, if you're not worried about it and you're not worried about charging it, you absolutely thrash it. Has it got an impressive performance?
Someone told me once, someone had a go on one like this. It was Joe Wicks.
All right.
Had a go on this. And he loves his motorbikes. And he had a go on these, and I said, well, what do you think of it? And he goes, Charlie, he says, I don't want to tell you what it feels like because you've sat on the thing for a very long time. Yeah. But he said, when you're really giving it a bit of gas or a bit of juice,
a bit of electron,
he said he did that for about 20 minutes, and he got off the bike, and he said he felt like he'd just been on 3 extreme roller coasters in a row. And he got off the bike, and he felt a little bit.
And he's used to riding motorbikes, though, which I always think of as
riding powerful bikes.
Yeah.
And he said, and the power of this is quite extraordinary. Yeah. I mean, they are fast. I mean, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Right.
But what's interesting is that sort of 40 to 80.
Yes, it's that wallop,
that
isn't it?
Unbelievable wallop. Yeah. And nearly all of these electric cars have that.
They all do it. Yeah.
Very impressive.
Great. But thanks so much, Charlie. I'm really pleased you're back here in one piece. And
listen, I love what you guys do.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. It's a really good YouTube.
Right. Well, we might get you if we get a really terrifying bike. There's some terrifying bikes.
Yeah,
that are in the tubes. We'd love you to come and have a go.
Yeah, listen, I'll do that. No problem at all. Yeah. And I've got a charger here now.
You've got your Zappy.
I've got my Zappy.
Yeah.
I've put that in. My next phase, I'm really excited.
Right.
I'm going to do a little bit, not quite as crazy as you've gone, but I might control myself to maybe 11 home batteries rather than your 24. So I'm going to get a home battery, a bit like you've done, with some solar panels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he has a warehouse down in Dorset, and he's got some solar panels on his. On his, and he's just bought the warehouse with the solar panels on it, and he's been trying to figure out how much he's going to make. And he's been there for 6 months, just got a check, $2,500
from his feed
in. Yeah. So it's not bad.
No, that's good.
And you get that $2,500. Okay, that's your summer months. So
I mean, he will have a big roof with a lot of panels.
He's got a big roof.
Yeah. I mean, a house wouldn't do that, but.
No, not at all. But a house would potentially be able to fill this.
Oh gosh, absolutely, without any trouble.
And do I do downhill mountain biking. I've got these.
I know. It'll charge all those and do your washing machine, tumble dryer, dishwasher, all that.
Yeah, but can you imagine doing? What I love is that if you're going to have an electric motorcycle, you can quite easily run for your whole of your
10 months of the year.
9-10 months a year. You can run it off that, and you can then sell into the grid.
Yeah.
You can go buy in cheap, and
Yeah. No, it's good.
Anyway,
it's all good. Brilliant.
Anyway, very good socially distancing.
Yes, thank you.
and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
Thanks very much.
And thank you very much for coming. I think,
No, it's our pleasure.
Fully
Brilliant.
Charged is a really
That's
a
good.
really nice show.
There you go. You heard him.
Watch Fully Charged next time when I do one of the reviews on
Yes.
electric motorbikes coming up quite soon.